As you watch the presidential primaries, one of the things that once in a while concerns some of us is the difficulty that many Republicans have articulating the difference between Ronald Reagan's Opportunity Society and Barack Obama's autocratic society. They're not the same. The differences are very, very stark. Yet the number of people who can articulate that in a way that the country gets it is clearly a very, very, very small number. And it's maybe one of the reasons that our nominating process has not produced a clear winner at this point, because everybody has that problem. The extraordinary thing about Allen West is, number one, he gets it. He knows what he believes, he knows what we believe, he knows what the other people believe, he knows why they're different, and he knows why he doesn't want any part of what they believe in. He's able to say it with a clarity so that when people hear it, they then understand that that's also what they believe. And that's the challenge for our party, to have more people who can articulate the differences the way Allen does. Having said that, there are a whole lot of people in this room who are saying to themselves, you know, come November, Allen West is not going to be my congressman anymore. So I'm one of a small number, 1/4 of his district, that gets to say, come November, he will not only be my current congressman, but he will then be my future congressman, because I live in that part of his district that was cut off when they did the redistricting. But having said that, every time I introduce Allen West, I say just what I'm going to say now. Ladies and gentlemen, America's Congressman, Allen West.
Everybody just calm down. You know, last week I just got out of a meeting or a hearing or something, and I came into the office, and if you've been to our office up in Washington, D.C., you know that the staff assistant, that's the first person you see. And so I walked in, and Caitlin was just cracking up laughing, just I don't know what was going on. I said, Caitlin, what's something wrong with what I have on or whatever? She said, no. She said, come here and look at this. And so I go around, and there's a website she has up, and it's called thinkprogress.com. And it was hilarious, because there are people out there on the other side that are actually tracking every little single thing that I say. And they have the top 10 things that Allen West has said. And you know, it really started to look like a bunch of whiners.
He said nuts. He said he doesn't want liberal message in America. He said,
you know, what I can't understand for the life of me is how people on the other side can certainly dish it out. But when you stand up on principle, when you tell them what you believe in, they can't take it. They act offended and they act hurt. So I know that whatever I say tonight is going to show up somewhere. And I know that the Washington Post will be, you know, going apoplectic tomorrow for whatever comes out of my mouth. We're here to talk about one very simple and special thing. It's President's Day. And I want to share some thoughts about being an American president. Not just being an American president, but being an American leader. You know, 8 years ago, Angela and I landed here in South Florida. after serving 22 years in the United States military. And I told Angela, wherever you want to go, I will follow you, and we will set up our permanent home. And one of the first chances I got to speak here was with the Boca Raton Republican Club. My dear friend and a man who has really come to be a special father to me, Shalom, Alan Bernstein, who has been corresponding with me in Iraq. And he set it up for me to speak here, he and Jack Fenard. And at that time, I spoke about what had brought me to that point where I stood in front of the Boca Raton Club. And I talked about my father and how he raised me to be a strong young man, to be an officer in the military, teaching me that the most important thing is to take care of your men in combat. That's what it brought me to Boca Raton. That's what it brought me to South Florida. But I want to talk about what has brought me to this moment where I'm standing before each and every one of you here today. Because back when I came from Afghanistan, most of the people sitting here, you did not know who I was. But yet I decided to run for Congress in 2008. And what made me run for Congress in 2008? It's a passion. It's a sense of patriotism. It's a sense of pragmatic principle that says no matter what the odds are, if you go out and you tell people and remind them what America is, and what America means, and what it means to live in a constitutional republic, that's what Sid is talking about. Articulating the essence of who we are. And as I stand here today and I think about George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, who we celebrate, I think about the essence of American presidents. The essence of men who understood what it meant to be a selfless servant, what it meant to be humble, and humbling yourself before God, and humbling yourself before the people that you were called to serve. When George Washington resigned his commission, he was simply going to return to Mount Vernon and not seek to have any position in this new country. And just the same, when I came here to South Florida, I thought these were my years to retire, to teach high school over at Deerfield Beach, and to be a weekend dive bar. But that didn't work out as we had planned. Because something said, we want you to go back to Afghanistan, to go back and work with the military. And while in Afghanistan, someone said, would you think about returning back and running for Congress? What America needs right now are men and women that think not of themselves, not of special interests, but think only of the American interest. And when they think of the American interest, they understand the principles and values upon which this great nation was established. Men and women that can go in and read and understand the Declaration of Independence and understand those words that Thomas Jefferson penned, words that had never been uttered or thought of ever before, words that talked about the preeminence of the individual, their life, their liberty, their pursuit of happiness, a place where you could be free. But it also talked about the grievances that those people had against King George and against an autocratic monarchy. And if you understand the Declaration of Independence, then you can understand the Constitution of the United States of America. Because what they set forth to establish here in this great nation was a place where government would be limited in what it could do to the individual. Not intrusive, not overbearing, but to set the conditions for your success. And when I think about a man like George Washington, who stood up as our first president with this fledgling ideal that was called a constitutional republic, what it meant to bring together these 13 now new states and get them to try to be some type of organized entity. That's why I say these United States of America, not the United States of America, because it makes an incredible difference. We must respect the states that we have. We must respect the individual. And as we go forth, and we think about the presidents that followed, great men like Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration, great men like James Madison, who wrote the Constitution, great men like Abraham Lincoln, who made it possible for someone like myself to be standing here today. And that is the legacy of this Republican Party. And don't ever forget that. The legacy that you set forth in 1864 with a platform that said we cannot truly live up to the ideas of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence until all men and women in the United States of America are free. That is what Abraham Lincoln said. You think about the courage that it takes to be an American president. That's what George Washington and Abraham Lincoln gave to us. You think about the courage to stand there and see a nation that was torn apart back in the 1860s and commit men to try to keep this union together based upon that simple principle of freedom. You think about the presidents that followed on and the commitment that they showed, the conviction to this country that they showed. You know, one of the seldom not talked about presidents, Harry Truman. Think about some of the great things that he was able to do. Think about how he comes in at the end of World War II and the decisions that he has to make. And think about Harry Truman, who finally enabled those black men to finally be able to serve alongside with white men in the military. But never forget, there were Republicans that first gave them that blue suit so that they could serve, so that they could find honor and integrity. You think about character. Think about the means by which we display character in these tough times. Many of you have seen that great portrait of George Washington kneeling at Valley Forge in the snow, offering up to God, asking for his divine guidance. That is what we need in American presidents. Tonight, whose voice was it that we listened to as we went through that stream of different presidents? It was Ronald Reagan. And it was Ronald Reagan who stood and he embodied the sense of America, a sense of strength, a sense of principle. And he coined that phrase, peace through strength. And it was Ronald Reagan that made us believe that even in the darkest days, the darkest moments for our economy, for our national security, that as Americans we could rise above it and we could once again be, as he said, that shining city that sits upon a hill. That is what it means to be an American president. That is what it means to be an American leader. The challenge for each and every one of us today as we go forward, start thinking about what is an American president. Start thinking about what are the essence of leadership. The courage, the competence, the conviction, the commitment, the character, the passion, and the patriotism that it requires to lead this great nation that God has so blessed. These are some trying times for us, but we've seen trying times before in our country. And the great thing about the United States of America is that they will always find that leader from somewhere to take this country to another level, to a new height. I do not believe that the greatest days of America are over. I believe that the greatest days of the United States of America are before us. If we would just go back and think about what it means to be an American. Many times I go and I read in the Bible, in the Old Testament, and I read about how the Jewish people were taken off to captivity by the Babylonians, the Assyrians. And I think about right now how America is being taken away in captivity. We have forgotten those things that make us unique. We have forgotten those things which make us exceptional. There are those who don't even believe that we have a very distinct American culture. And that is when you lose your nation and you forget who you are. But I think that in these days of captivity, in these days of high debt, in these days of high increasing gas prices, in these days where we have so many different foreign enemies that are threatening our country, we will once again remember what it means to be in the land of the free, because we have forever been the home of the brave. Yeah. So on this President's Day, don't just come here and have a good meal, see your friends, take pictures. Go home tonight. Take a few moments to read a few passages from the Declaration of Independence. Take a few moments to read 2 or 3 of the Federalist Papers. Take a few moments to read just a few excerpts from the United States Constitution. Sit down and look and do a little research on George Washington. Read a little bit about Abraham Lincoln. Study a little more about Harry Truman and Ronald Reagan. And remember who they were and what they stood for. And therefore, as you go forward, select a president that embodies those characteristics and those principles, that says, as the motto of the United States is, in God we trust. Do not forget what brought us to this point in 236 years. I know what brought me to this stage. It was a passion for this country. That's all Sid's talking about. There are some people that don't understand that passion. But for those of you out there, such as Officer Bill Kilcoyne, back there, Boca Raton, who once upon a time was Lieutenant Kilcoyne in the 1st Battalion, 377th Field Artillery Regiment, Air Assault. He was one of my lieutenants. Those of us who have ever raised our right hand to say that we will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and to bear true faith and allegiance to the same, we have been willing to give our life. Some of us have seen our comrades give their life. And that is why, no matter what they say on Think Progress, no matter what they say on the Huffington Post, I know what it means to be an American. I know what it means to live in a constitutional republic. And I will not allow anyone to take away that great birthright, that incredible legacy that we must pass on to our children and to our grandchildren. We should one day celebrate the day when these young ladies who are dancing here will be sitting up here on this dais. And some of us will be old and drooling and eating tapioca. But we can rejoice in the fact of this, that we stood on principle, and we gave them the same opportunities that our parents and grandparents gave to us. My commitment is to you, young ladies. My commitment is to all of your children, to all of your grandchildren. I shall not grow tired, I shall not grow weary, and I shall forever remain steadfast and loyal to these United States of America.
Is in April. Go on, here's a very special guest speaker, Adam Kasner. We will be sending out all the details for that very shortly. We We also still have dessert coming, so please make sure you enjoy your dessert. And additionally, if you would like a copy of the book, The Next Nightmare, by our National Committee man, Peter Feynman, you may also be able to purchase that tonight. So have fun and